Keep your head up. You're not alone. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. We're halfway home.
It's time for Your Voices of Hope, a video podcast program that offers straight talk on some of the major issues facing us today: addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, human trafficking, and suicide. But more than that, it's our desire to inspire hope. Now, your host, Michelle Byer.
Welcome to Your Voices of Hope. I am your host, Michelle Byer. Today, my guest is Robin Holland. Robin is a certified peer support specialist, and she works for NAMI as a System Navigator. She's from Stark County, branch of NAMI. And Robin also, which I did not know this, but talking with Robin before we got on air here, Robin was a minister of a church at one time. So welcome, Robin. It's nice to see you today.
Yeah, it's great to see you too.
This is so interesting to me to find out that you were a minister. Now, I sat in a car with you for 2 hours to Columbus and 2 hours back and didn't even know this.
I thought I was a normal person. There's nothing normal about me. Right, you know what? And being a minister, I don't think I wanted to do it full time.
Okay.
But I love marrying people, and I love doing funerals. I don't know.
Wait a minute. You love doing funerals?
Yes, because a funeral is a celebration of life.
Okay.
And they get these preachers at the funeral homes that go up there and read their obituary, pronounce their name wrong, show absolutely no feeling, don't know the person, and maybe I don't know the person at the beginning, but by the time I do the funeral, I know them and I know their family, and I just want to honor people's lives. They lived a life that needs to be honored. So, God works in mysterious ways.
He's God. He's awesome. I have everything in the world to thank for him. I mean, I have everything. So I don't need anything except for him.
Right.
So tell me how, before we get into anything else, because I am fascinated by this, as you can see, how did you get started with that? I mean, how did you get started with that? What made you go?
I'll tell you what, if I told you my whole resume, right? My resume is like a who's who of what are you doing? But, I knew Kay and the girls from NAMI from when I was with the Crisis Center and Hunter House, and I just adored them. So I would get some of my guys from Hunter House and we would volunteer for NAMI. We would go help them load a truck at Dollar General, and then we'd go out to Heartland and we would do discharge bags. The blue discharge.
Oh, I remember those.
Right, that they did. We would help to do those and have lunch, and I just adored them. And actually, I would talk to Kay quite often. She would help me, figure out some things with my people down there and stuff like that. So when the position became available, she had 2 open, and I read the one that said Systems Navigator, and it was like, what a great opportunity. I'm not getting any younger, so helping people find services or just listening while they talk, and that's the important part of it, is just listening to them. Sometimes if people hear themselves talk, they realize what they're saying, and that's been an amazing part. And, all the girls that I work with, I love them dearly. We've been working from home. So the only time I get to see them is once a week. We do our weekly check-in on Zoom.
Right.
But you know what? We just all fit together like a glove. We all bring our own backgrounds into it. We all bring our own stories into it, but we all work for the same reason. And that's amazing.
So speaking of stories, let's start with your story. How many years have you been sober? Are you sober from alcohol, drugs, and you have mental health, I'm sure as well?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I have been sober for a little over 22 and a half years.
Wow.
September 13th, 1997 is my sobriety date. And I didn't know I had a mental illness. You know, I'm a firm believer today that most people that are alcoholics and drug addicts are mentally ill.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's all a part of your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
what that. So when I had about 2 years sober, I had a breakdown, and I had no idea what was going on. I got up and did nothing but cry, and I couldn't stop. And I'd try to straighten up, and I'd cry again, and I had no idea why I was crying. But you know, when you had won all them years putting alcohol and drugs in your body, you self-medicated. And when
Right.
I come away and I faced the real world, that's when the difficulty started. You know, my brain had to think, you know, my brain had to feel.
Yeah. Those are things we
And when
don't
they
want.
diagnosed me with a mental illness, back at the time, I was called a manic depressant. And I had no idea. Actually, I knew what mental illness was, but like I said, I didn't know what all that circle was. So I started educating myself. Do you know what I'm really shocked to find out is how many people in the world have a mental health provider, but have never been told what their diagnostic assessment read, and you know, have no idea what's wrong
Yes.
with it.
Yes, I know. I was one of them. I didn't understand anything until I worked at Heartland. That's when I learned. So, yes. And that's very sad. Very, very sad.
Education is so important because you have to, you know, learn about yourself. What do you like? What don't you like? Who are you? I do a weekly check-in at Heartland. You know, they're all quarantined out there and can't get in and out. We usually go in, can't do any of that. So I send them usually like a word search and a little newsletter or something. And this week's newsletter is who are you and how to find you.
Right. Nice.
I never had any idea what it was like to be somewhat normal.
So,
You know, I've always been a little on the wild side. I've always had excessive energy. I've always enjoyed laughter, and I love to make people laugh. You know, what that. But I also do it because I'm making myself laugh.
right.
You know, that's a big part of it.
What I now call the Robin Williams effect.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I don't think I ever had a lot of laughter until I got clean and sober.
Well, what made you get clean and sober?
Yeah. Things that used to make me laugh were actually not very funny. Some of them might have been picking on others or watching what others do and stuff like that, you know. And I'm not very proud of that today. Today, I can laugh at myself. That's pure joy. When I do something, I tell people about it. You know, there's that one thing on Facebook that says something. You know that thing where you trip going up the stairs, choke on air and do that? I'm like, I can do that really good. But I laugh about it now.
Right. So Robin, tell us about when you got sober, What made you get sober?
I'm one of those people today that fully believe that God has a plan for you. And, for many, many years I drank. I'm going to tell you, kind of start back a little bit, because I grew up in a family where my dad was an alcoholic, and he was a very brutal alcoholic, and he would beat my mom.
Oh.
So life became a secret. And back then, there weren't any domestic violence shelters. There wasn't any help. Actually, when I was growing up, like in the 60s, it was pretty normal for guys to beat on their women to keep them in line.
Yeah.
So my mom would say, where am I going to go? I can't go to your grandma's, because if I do, your dad will get drunk, he'll come there, there'll be a fight. So the secret started way back then. And then I got in high school. And I think that I thought I was all grown up. I started dating, and I got pregnant at a very young age. And I think that was because I thought sex was love.
Right.
And at that age, guys don't think sex is love.
What about that age? A lot of ages, they don't think that way. It doesn't stop. They could be 70. 70 years old. I've run into 70-year-old men.
Absolutely. So, I had my kids young. If I was to say I was an alcoholic or a drug addict back then, I used alcohol and drugs all through that, but I don't really think I had a problem. And then I quit drinking for like 4 years, and I got married, and I had my 2 kids, and we had his 2 kids, and life seemed somewhat normal. And I didn't go to AA. I didn't do anything like that. I didn't change anything. And one night we went out, and it had been like 4 years, and somebody said, let's go to the pizzeria and have a couple of beers. And I said, okay. And my husband looked at me and he said, my wife doesn't drink. And I said, I think I could have a couple. And that night I got drunk. And that night they carried me in the house. They sat me on that little rug in front of the toilet, where I proceeded to be sick and pass out. And even though I hadn't drank in like 4 years, it started all over again. And I was more so addicted than I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about my alcoholism and my drug addiction, I was always functioning enough to go to work. And that's a lot of people's excuses. I go to work every day.
Right.
I can't have a problem because I work. Did I give 100%? No, I did not.
Right.
But now to tell you, I worked at the Red Cross. I was the health and safety director there for 17 years.
Wow.
I could never tell anyone that I had an alcohol problem, because, very straight-laced, very whatever. So
right.
We got another secret. Well, I hired a secretary, and this is where God gets involved. I got a divorce. I started dating a guy that was younger than me, but he drank like me. So I'd go to work, I'd get off work, I'd go to a bar, happy hour, just close the bar, come home, try to sleep for a couple hours, go back into work and do it all over again. And I started my job in October of 96. And in January, I hired a secretary. And one day the secretary looks at me and she says, you drink a lot, don't you? Yeah, doesn't everybody? And she's like, no, because of a program called AA, I haven't drank for 22 years. And I thought, wow. I walked in my office, I shut the door, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. And then my next thought was, that poor woman must be bored to tears. I didn't know how to do anything without drinking.
Yeah.
The drugging part of it, you know, when I was a kid, I tried a lot of different drugs. But 3 years before I got clean and sober, I hurt my back and they gave me painkillers, oxys, and muscle relaxers. And I fell in love, probably for the first time in my life.
Easy.
I could do the oxys and the muscle relaxers, and I didn't have to get drunk. You know, I didn't get falling down drunk anymore, and I didn't puke in front of the toilet. But I am going to share that I'm probably one of the people that they changed all the things in the pharmacies, because I had several names and several IDs. And yeah.
Robin!
So, all those rules that they have now, some of them were probably done because of me.
Well,
my secretary had planted this seed. She told me different things about being sober and stuff like that, but she had planted the seed, and life went downhill. And one night I decided to go out, and I drank, and I did the oxy, and I woke up on the little rug in front of the toilet, kind of stripped of all my pride and everything else. I thought I was going to die. I think that I was never afraid of dying. And I think that, you know, when a prescription bottle says, take one as needed for pain, I justified that because it was my prescription. It did not say, take 4 with a 40 ounce of alcohol.
Right.
That was me. So I remember waking up on the morning of September 13th and thinking, I'm dying. I'm actually dying. And that moment of clarity that they say that people have, I had that because I remember crying out to God and saying, I think I'm dying, and if you don't help me, I'm going to die, and I don't want to now. So for a split second, I thought, okay, maybe I can stop this. I'll quit doing this, whatever. And, you know, it actually worked. I cried out to a God that at a time I didn't really believe in. Mm-hmm. And he helped me. And, you know, I'm one of those people that need to be, I don't just have faith, I need to be shown. A seeing is believing. And there have been several times in my journey that he has shown me that he's still the boss and he's still got the power, and I'm still listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that secretary became my sponsor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the first meeting of AA that she took me to, I heard this voice and I looked around, and it was my old high school history teacher, and I went, oh, I gotta leave. And she said, why? And I said, because this is an anonymous program and he knows me. And she looked at me and said, Robin, what do you think he's here for? Sometimes we get things quickly and sometimes it's slowly.
Yeah, I got a hard head.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ask everybody in, you know, ComQuest when I was in Deliverance House. They never thought I'd make it because Michelle has a hard head. She's not getting it. So, and it takes me a while to get things.
Well, you know, I didn't really get it either, but my sponsor always told me to fake it till I make it. And that was the wrong thing to say to somebody like me, because I would fake stuff. And then I always, and I tell all the girls that I sponsor today, if they use the word but, there's nothing but an excuse after that. I tell my sponsor, yeah, I know. I didn't know anything.
No.
But the things that, and I guess if I had to describe an alcoholic, I would have described my dad. And I was really not like my dad. Come to find out, I'm a lot like him. But I also thought of the guy like under the bridge,
Right.
with that heavy coat on and the bottle in a bag and, yelling obnoxious things and stuff like that.
This stigma that we keep trying to fight here.
So I go to an AA meeting and I'm never afraid for someone to see me sitting on a bar stool, but I'm afraid who's going to see me in AA. And, I go in there and there are people from every walks of life, and I was telling, I had 3 young men from AA put on my deck last week, and we had like a daily meeting, and it was so good, and I was telling them, everybody is so different. Everybody's story is a little different, but we're all there for the same reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That lady became my sponsor. I worked my steps with her. That was kind of back in the day when people dressed up to go to AA meetings, but, being the rebel that I was, I wore my t-shirt and my bibs.
Bibs.
Once a rebel, always a rebel.
Okay. So
I find out today that helping others helps me more.
It does. It does. It really does. When did you become a minister? Was it during your use? Was it after your use?
No. I went to church. My mother took us to church. But it was kind of a hell and brimstone sort of church. You sin, you're going to hell. I know today that that's the Old Testament, and that's the way God was purveyed in the Old Testament. But, once Jesus Christ died on the cross for us, it became the New Testament, and things changed because he knew what it was like to live here. And, sometimes I wonder if our hell isn't here on earth. I don't know. We kind of make our own. But, I didn't want to be an everyday preacher, like I said. So it was actually in my sobriety. I started going to church when I had about 5 years sober. A couple years into it, they convinced me that God uses anyone. That God could use a loudmouth like me. I still curse. You won't hear me say God's name in vain, but I still curse like a sailor. And, I've been remodeling my house, so if I smash my finger or get a bruise, I yell. And they're obscenities, but I don't use the Lord's name in vain. I just have a potty mouth, and I think he forgives me for that. But people need to know that there is a God. That God can reach out and help you if you ask. They need to know that there's an instruction manual for life, and it's the Bible, especially the New Testament.
Oh, I love that. Instruction manual for life, the Bible. That is so true. You have your own instruction manual right there. That phone that's in your hand?
A lot of stuff about the Bible, though, it's very hard to read. And you can actually go to a Christian bookstore and buy a life recovery Bible.
Yes.
And it's plain English.
Yes. You could get the app.
Old words, and stuff like that.
Download the app on your phone.
Yes. So, everybody has their problems. you know, and there's lots of different addictions beside alcohol and drugs, you know. It can be people addictions, food addictions, sex addictions. There's so many different things, gambling. So any of those things that you need help with recovering from, a 12-step program will do that. You know, like I said, what NAMI, Cindy Kissick and I are doing a Wednesday night DRA meeting. And what DRA stands for is Dual Recovery Anonymous. It's for people that have a mental illness or mental health diagnosis, and for people that have substance abuse problems.
Okay.
So it's kind of neat putting the two of them together because you really get to know yourself. You know, I find out that I wasn't so bad. I've done a lot of changing. I've done a lot of healing. And that's
Right.
joyful to me. It's very joyful.
Right.
You know?
Right. I look back too, and I love who I am. There's a ton of improvements needed to be made. Don't get me wrong. We improve every day, and if we don't, that's not real good. We need to keep improving. But I don't necessarily like who I was back then. Even if, you know, I started drinking at 37. Prior to that, I was not a good person.
Mhm.
So this new life, you learn. And I think the 12 steps, like doing those steps, anybody should do those.
Anybody. And you know what? They use it in all the anonymous, the overeaters, you know.
Well,
Addicts
even
Anonymous.
if you don't have a problem,
12 steps.
use them. Because I think it would, self-discovery is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole lot of people out there that could use some self-discovery. I'm just saying, that's all.
Well, that's the way, you know. I was trying to figure out when we did this, like, I kind of lost my train of thought there in case you couldn't tell. But, you know, when we were in quarantine, I was trying to think of what I could do to try to help people. And so many people were so negative.
Yeah.
You know, I see things on Facebook and stuff like that. And, you know, with NAMI, one of the things that we do is we educate, you know, we support. We're not, you know, we don't have therapists. None of us are therapists. We all have lived experience.
Right.
So I started a closed mental health Facebook page. And it's for people to be able to come in and talk about mental illness. Well, it's called NAMI Let's Talk. But sometimes I think I'm the only person that talks because there's so much stigma out there. You know, God forbid they should say on a closed Facebook site, I have a mental illness. I'm bipolar. You know, yes, I love to read things on how to make my life better. But you know, I can see who sees it, and that's the important part. And so I spend some of my days looking up, you know, motivational things.
Yeah, you do a great job. I love them, and I do take some of them and post them on mine. And let me circle back. It's a little funny there. To what you had just said about people not talking and saying they have a mental illness. I've had my page for 6 or 7 years, Your Voices of Hope, which was Addiction Voices of Hope. People don't tend to open up very easily. So you're not going to always get as much as, even if you ask a question, you're going to get the 1 or the 2, which is always good. At least you're getting somebody. Ask a question. You might get that 1. You might even get me. You don't want me though. But you know, those memes are amazing, and you have no idea what they actually do for people. So people may not be writing on that page, but what they're getting from those memes are inspiring them for the day, for the moment, whatever it is, because I know that I can open up. If I'm feeling down, I know where to go. I know where to go.
Thank you.
So, and they're wonderful. So tell us what a certified peer support specialist is and how you got started doing that.
I got started doing it because, like I said, I worked at the Red Cross for 17 years. Then I got downsized out of my position in health and safety. So I saw a job on Indeed, and it said it wanted somebody with lived experience in addiction and mental health. And I looked at that and thought, that's too easy. You know, I knew it was too easy.
That's hokey.
But I interviewed for the position, and it was actually a Hunter House. And what Hunter House is 48 apartments. They were all homeless. They are severely mentally ill, substance abusers. And so I did the training, and one of the reasons for peer support is not like, okay, say you're an alcoholic and you're going to a therapist that's never been an alcoholic. Somebody needs to understand you, and someone needs to have that lived experience. And I found out a whole different way of life, because most of these people were getting a roof over their heads, but they had no intentions on getting clean and sober. So I was in a whole different world. They didn't want recovery. You know, if somebody comes to AA or NA or any of those meetings, they want help. Mm-hmm. These people, you know, so we had to start at the beginning. Let's recover from homelessness first, then work on our mental illness, get some medication, then try to stop the alcohol and drugs. You know, it was quite an experience, kind of like an extra family. I have lots of education in homelessness and the mental illness and the drug addiction. And all I can do, you know, I can't change anybody. That's the big thing about it. I tore the serenity prayer apart a lot. What can I change? What can't I change? Okay. And even if I helped one person, being there helped me. You know, and it's the same way in my sobriety. It's the same way with my mental illness. If I can help one person, I've impressed me. And, you know, I think it's been the hardest thing in the world to realize that I don't have to impress anybody but the good old dude me. And sometimes I'm harder to please than he is.
This is, and that's just it. We're usually harder on ourselves than anybody else. And, you know, and all we really need to do is make sure we're doing the right thing for God. Now, let me just ask you this one last question, because we are running out of time. And what keeps you sober? Let's say you're going through the worst time of your life, and I'm sure you've had horrible, horrible things happen over the last, 20 some odd years here. What has kept you sober? What has kept you from that drink, that drug? Because there's people out there that will say, well, I had this happen to me and I went back to drinking. And those are excuses.
And they're making excuses.
That's right. Those are excuses.
If I drink or drug again, it's on me. It's
right.
I wanted to.
That's right. So what is it that keeps you?
After I got clean and sober for a few months, I felt so much better and things started to change. things have happened that have been wicked. You know, I lost my dad 18 months ago. I lost my mom, and she was my best friend, and it broke my heart. And one of the biggest ways I've stayed sober is my AA friendships. My best friend lives in Cincinnati, and she has 22 years also. She got in her car when she heard my mom died and come up and spent the day with me.
Nice.
2 days, actually. Another friend from when I first came in, Debbie, came over and spent the day with me. And they let me be quiet. They let me cry. They let me do, you know, whatever I needed to do. The people, you know, and some people say, I don't care if they're in recovery or not, they don't change. People do change.
Yes, they
And,
do.
you know, I wouldn't want my life any other way but it is today. You know, I've had so many people say, if you could go back in time and change things, would you?
Right.
Everything that I've went through has been a lesson. You know, I know how to stay sober today, and that is just by not picking up the first drink.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you
Oh,
know,
gosh.
I'll end my part with one thing. My DRA subject last night was powerlessness. And I always hear people say, I'm powerless over alcohol and drugs. And that just didn't make sense to me. It didn't register. And then one day I finally figured it out. I'm not powerless today. I've spent some time telling my story to you. So I'm not going to drink today. I've went into AA groups. I've went into mental health groups. I've told my story. And a lot of my story I'm not real proud of, but it got me where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Am I powerless over alcohol and drugs? Not until I pick up that first one.
That's right. We have the power. Reminds me of that song, I've got the power. Right? Let's get jiggy with it. Well, Robin, your story, you know, I know more now. And I really thought she's not going to be able to tell me anything I don't know, that I didn't learn over the years and the car ride. And, well, I was wrong. You know, someone can meet me and in 5 minutes they know everything about my life because I could just spew.
I can today, but it used to be a secret.
And that's a lot. That
No
happens
more
a lot. That does happen. And it's more with, even though I'm going to be 53 next month, you know, I know my family, everything was a secret. I never was that way. My mom was, oh my God, you can't tell anybody this. Your generation, secrets. So yeah, and it's not so much now with the younger generation. And I say your generation, I mean, you're only 13 years older than I am, 12. So it's still my generation too.
You know, things change though, and things have changed. And, you know, we have changed into the strong women we are today.
So we're very strong women. And that's a beautiful thing. So, Robin, one thing that you'd like to leave everybody with before you leave. One thing.
Don't ever give up. You know,
Perfect.
if you give up, I had a very dear friend that committed suicide. I always say he gave up 5 minutes before the miracle happened. You know, and it's always there. All you got to do is ask for help.
And that is true. That is true. So, Robin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for asking me. It was very good to see you as always.
Thank you. It's always good to see you too. And I want to thank all of my listeners for watching again today of another episode of Your Voices of Hope. If you would like to sign up to be a guest on my show, please go to my Facebook page or my website, Your Voices of Hope, and sign up. And as always, remember to love yourself. Have a great day, and thank you, Robin Holland, for joining me again.
Thanks, Michelle.
You've been listening to Your Voices of Hope with your host, Michelle Beyer. This podcast and earlier programs are available for viewing on our Facebook page, Your Voices of Hope, or our website, yourvoicesofhope.com. A new podcast is uploaded and ready to view every Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m.
Keep your head up, keep your head up. You're not alone.